The old man stands by the hood, hands cuffed behind his back, while the officer, smirking with smug satisfaction, rummages through his truck. To him, this man is just somebody in a rusty heap. But here's the twist. That somebody is a United States Navy admiral. And in just a few minutes, everything this officer built will come crashing down with a deafening thud. The sun was blazing over a quiet stretch of asphalt in the middle of nowhere, the kind of heat that made the air shimmer and your thoughts sluggish. Behind the wheel of an old, creaky pickup sat Raymond Watson, a 60-year-old black man whose calm demeanor masked years of experience and battles fought both on and off the field. On the passenger seat next to him lay a brown paper bag filled with a modest lunch and a worn Navy cap adorned with a gold anchor, the symbol of his former glory. But out here, on this desolate road, glory didn't mean a thing. Out of nowhere, the sharp wail of a siren cut through the air. Raymond's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. A patrol car, lights flashing, closed in fast. A voice barked through the loudspeaker. "Pull over to the side of the road." Raymond let out a slow breath, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. Here we go again, he thought. He guided the truck to the shoulder, the tires crunching over gravel. Switching off the engine, he rolled down the window and waited. This wasn't his first rodeo. Two officers stepped out of the squad car. The leader, Blake Carter, strode up with the confidence of someone who had made up his mind before the facts got in the way. Mid-30s, pale complexion, and an air of superiority you could cut with a knife. His younger partner trailed behind, his movements hesitant, like he wasn't sure he belonged in the scene. "Afternoon, sir," Carter said, his smirk suggesting he didn't mean a word of it. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Raymond met his eyes calmly. "No, officer. Can't say that I do." Carter leaned against the window, scanning the truck's interior like it held state secrets. "You were driving way too slow. That's dangerous, especially out here. Gonna need to see some ID." Raymond reached into his pocket, pulled out his driver's license, and handed it over without a word. Carter glanced at it, then motioned toward his partner. "Step out of the vehicle, sir. Let's make sure everything checks out." Raymond hesitated for a moment, then climbed out, his boots crunching against the gravel. He stood tall despite his age, his gaze steady. Carter, meanwhile, had already begun rifling through the truck. He picked up the brown bag, turning it upside down. A sandwich and a few napkins spilled onto the dirt. "Oops," Carter said, his smirk growing wider. Raymond didn't flinch. "You find what you're looking for, officer?" Carter ignored him, reaching for something else, a worn cap with a gold anchor. He held it up like a trophy, inspecting it with exaggerated curiosity. "Well, what do we have here? A souvenir? Or did you grab this at a thrift store?" "That's my cap," Raymond replied, his tone even. Carter snorted. "Yours? Let me guess, you're a big shot. What are you, some kind of general?" "Admiral, actually, retired." The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with conviction. Carter blinked, then burst into laughter. He turned to his partner, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Did you hear that? We've got ourselves an admiral." "Maybe next he'll tell us he owns a battleship." Carter's tone turned icy as he stepped closer to Raymond. "Hands on the hood, old man." Raymond didn't move immediately, but the look in Carter's eyes made it clear this wasn't a request. Slowly, he turned and placed his hands on the truck's hood. The sun-heated metal seared against his palms. Cold steel cuffs clicked around his wrists moments later. "You really don't want to do this," Raymond said, his voice calm but firm. "Is that so?" Carter replied, tightening the cuffs. "Maybe you should have thought of that before driving like you owned the place." The younger officer shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Raymond stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the horizon, silently enduring the humiliation. Raymond stood motionless against the hood of his truck, the heat from the sun-soaked metal radiating into his palms. His hands were tightly cuffed behind his back, but his posture was calm, eerily calm, considering the situation. Officer Carter, however, was anything but calm. He was knee-deep in Raymond's truck, rummaging through every inch like he was expecting to uncover some long-lost treasure. "Seriously?" Carter grumbled, kicking an empty box he had pulled from the back seat. It skittered across the gravel like a tumbleweed. "This is it? Nothing but junk in here? Raymond didn't flinch. Told you, officer, there's nothing in there but my things. Carter slammed the door shut, pacing back and forth in front of Raymond. His frustration was palpable, like a child losing a game they swore they'd win. All right, Admiral. Carter spat the word like it was a joke. Why don't you tell me where you're headed in this masterpiece? He gestured sarcastically to the rusty truck. Home, Raymond said simply, his voice steady as a rock. Finished my errands in town. Home? In this piece of scrap metal? Carter stopped pacing, planting himself directly in front of Raymond. You must really think I'm stupid. Raymond didn't respond. He just kept his gaze fixed on the horizon, as if Carter's words were nothing more than static in the background. The younger officer, standing a few feet away, shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting no part in the unfolding drama. Just as Carter opened his mouth to deliver another sarcastic jab, the low rumble of an approaching engine broke the tension. A sleek black SUV came into view, tires screeching slightly as it pulled over sharply to the side of the road. The door swung open, and out stepped a tall, broad-shouldered man in a pristine Navy uniform. His movements were precise, almost military in their efficiency, and his sharp gaze took in the scene with a single sweep. All right, what's going on here? The man demanded, his voice cutting through the tense silence like a blade. He walked towards the group, every step radiating authority. This was Captain Michael Harris, a man who clearly wasn't here for small talk. Carter turned, his irritation flaring up again. This is police business, sir. Who are you to interfere? Harris didn't answer. He didn't need to. Instead, his eyes landed on Raymond. His expression shifted instantly, from stern to something much closer to respect. His voice softened, though it still carried the weight of command. Admiral Watson? Harris's brow furrowed as he took in the sight of Raymond in handcuffs. What is the meaning of this? Raymond, still calm, replied evenly. Just a little misunderstanding, Captain. Harris's gaze hardened as he turned to Carter. Misunderstanding? You mean to tell me you've arrested a retired admiral of the United States Navy? Carter's smirk faltered. Wait, what? Admiral? This guy? Yes, Harris said coldly, and if you had taken 2 seconds to check his credentials, instead of jumping to conclusions, you'd know that. Carter's confidence was visibly unraveling. Hold on, this can't be right. I mean, look at him. Harris's glare could have frozen lava. Officer, do you realize what you've done? You've handcuffed a man who's dedicated his life to serving this country. I strongly suggest you remove those cuffs immediately before this misunderstanding becomes a permanent mark on your career. The younger officer didn't need to be told twice. He rushed over, fumbling slightly as he unlocked the cuffs. Raymond flexed his wrists, but otherwise didn't move, his composure unshaken. Meanwhile, Harris pulled out his phone. I'm making a call. This needs to be documented properly. Carter stood frozen, a mix of shock and denial washing over him. He opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Within minutes, another vehicle arrived, a car bearing military plates. A naval officer stepped out, saluting Harris and confirming Raymond's identity with a quick nod. Raymond turned to Carter, his expression unreadable. Next time, he said quietly, maybe don't judge a book by its cover. Carter said nothing, his jaw clenched. Harris stepped closer to him, his voice dropping to a low, almost menacing tone. I hope you understand the gravity of this situation, Officer Carter, Harris said, because I assure you, the Navy doesn't take kindly to this kind of behavior. The tension hung thick in the air as the officers exchanged glances. The balance of power had shifted entirely, and Carter knew it. By dawn the next morning, the quiet highway drama had exploded onto every screen in America. A bystander's shaky cell phone video had gone viral, capturing the tense exchange, the handcuffs, and the moment Captain Harris stepped in to set things straight. Headlines screamed, "Officer arrests Navy Admiral over nothing, outrage sparks online," and "Hero of the Seas, humiliated on land." The video wasn't just viral, it was a wildfire. Social media lit up with commentary, from outrage to memes, as people dissected every second of the incident. A clip of Officer Carter's face when he realized who Raymond really was quickly became a reaction gif. The department's reputation in shambles. At the precinct, Carter was summoned to the captain's office. The room was heavy with tension. His boss, a grizzled man with a no-nonsense demeanor, stood with his arms crossed, glaring at Carter like he was a teenager who'd just wrecked the family car. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" the captain growled, his voice low and simmering. "You arrested an admiral. An admiral, Carter. You didn't just mess up. You embarrassed this entire department." Carter shifted uncomfortably, trying to explain. "Sir, I didn't know. He didn't look like an admiral. I mean, he was driving a beat-up truck." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Didn't look like an admiral? What does that even mean? You didn't check his documents, you didn't listen, you just assumed." Carter opened his mouth to defend himself, but the captain cut him off. "And now the whole country knows. They're calling us the poster boys for profiling and injustice. Congratulations, Officer Carter. You've not only ruined your career, you've tainted this department for years to come." The words hit like a freight train. Carter stood there, jaw clenched, as the captain's final verdict landed with the weight of a hammer. "You're done here. Clear out your locker." Outside the station, reporters crowded the steps, their cameras flashing as Carter tried to slip away unnoticed. His partner, who had kept quiet during the incident, decided to speak up, giving an interview to a local station. "Look," he said, his voice shaky but firm, "I should have done more. I should have said something. Carter's actions didn't reflect our values. He crossed the line." The internet, meanwhile, had rallied behind Raymond. Messages of support poured in, calling him a true American hero. News stations requested interviews, and even late-night comedians took up the story, turning Carter into the punchline of the week. As for Raymond, he didn't bask in the attention. When a national morning show invited him to speak, he accepted not to shame Carter, but to highlight a bigger issue. "This isn't just about me," Raymond said, his voice calm but resolute. "It's about what we assume when we look at someone. We judge by appearances, and that's dangerous. Everyone deserves respect, no exceptions." The clip of his words became a rallying cry, shared and reshared millions of times. People called for reforms, and Raymond became an unintentional symbol of dignity in the face of prejudice. Back at home, Raymond returned to the quiet life he cherished. In his small study, he carefully placed his gold-anchored Navy cap back on its shelf. For years, it had represented his service and achievements, but now it stood for something more, a victory over bias, a reminder that even in retirement, his fight for justice wasn't over. And as he closed the door to the study, the world outside buzzed on. But Raymond found peace in knowing that his story had made a difference. What would you have done in Raymond's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever experienced something like this? Let us know. Your voice matters. Don't forget to like and share if this story resonated with you. This story was created to shed light on important issues and inspire change. Together, we can make the world a better place. Your opinion matters.